We're going to share of the before the fire kind of concepts about resilient communities. Belinda and I had separate keynotes, but we figured we would just join them together. We'll do some primer slides, then we're going to share a video about a tribal workforce development initiative as we think about long-term ecosystem maintenance and maintaining fire-adapted communities. We need to build that local capacity, and often, one of our best partners are the place-based people who have been there for time immemorial and will continue to be there as the place-based people to maintain these fire-adapted systems. This photo here is in Northern California. We work in partnership with the Kuduk tribe in the Mid-Klamath and the U.S. Forest Service and a whole bunch of other non-government organizations, the Mid-Klamath Watershed Council. And that's after good treatments have been done, we're getting good fire back on the ground and maintain these fire-adapted systems to protect communities, ecosystem services, ecological health, and also the infrastructure we depend upon. So Lomakatsi, we're a non-government organization. We've been in operation for 28 years. Our mission is to restore ecosystems and the sustainability of communities, cultures, and economies. We do that through a triple bottom line approach. You can check our website out. I won't go into a lot of detail, but a lot of our work is to restore and maintain fire-adapted systems across California and Oregon. So thinking about the landscape, you know, there's a home site zone, there's a wildland urban interface. I'm gonna share a couple projects when we think about all lands, because we know fire knows no boundaries. Tribal trust lands, private non-industrial lands, federal lands. These are all ownerships on the map, and as Belinda will share in a little while, it's all ancestral lands. But this is the Rogue Basin strategy. So we developed, this is in southwestern Oregon, just over the border. We developed a 30-year strategy. As we think about these landscapes, it's very expensive to treat these landscapes. We have 100 to 150 years of lack of fire, departed systems, insects and disease. So we wanted to map out a strategy that can help us into the future of addressing those stands and those forests that need treatment in a strategic way. So southwestern Oregon's like the east side. It's a dry forest, frequent fire system. It's gonna burn. It's not as temperate as the north to the north. So we developed this scope of work in strategic locations. And if you look at the fire sheds across the west in southwestern Oregon, we have 4 out of the 5 that are really important in need of treatment. They're historically departed. They're vulnerable to high severity fire, mega fires. And you can see the map in the west. This is a Forest Service exercise. And these are the conditions we're dealing with on the ground. Densification, forests that have not been cared for with fire by tribal people in a long time. And additionally, stands that have severely departed and old trees like that we're losing on the landscape. And then we have these high severity fires that are wake-up calls. And we see these mega fires, million-acre fires we haven't seen before. This is the Siskiyou fire in 2009. So we're thinking about climate change. We're thinking about these altered landscapes and ecosystem services, the problems that we're all trying to address. And then how do we get to this point of resilient landscapes? We want to set the stage through our ecological thinning work, prescribed fire work. So when fire does come, not in the wildland urban interface, we have to pounce on fire near communities, but places on the on the exterior, we can potentially manage fire and get a handle on it if we've done the treatments and fire intensities are low to the ground. We also want to protect old forests. That's really valuable. And we do that through proactive ecological thinning to create these resilient forests. Now I'll turn it over to Belinda.
So this is a picture of the boarding school area, which is pretty much a black eye on America. And it was removal of our people, our Aboriginal people, from their land base and from the indigenous traditional ecological knowledge, which understands that fire is medicine for the land needs fire, and it was a land management tool for time immemorial. So this act of Congress that removed the indigenous people from the land was not a good idea. So now we're having to come back to that full circle knowledge and implement this ITech knowledge and marry it with Western science so we get better results on our land and with our people. So this is a picture of Yosemite Valley in the 1880s and 1960s, and as you will see, the densification. So here we're looking at the results of the removal from the people from the land and removal of fire from the land. So we have to debunk the John Muir education concept that this was a pristine wilderness. It was a very well kept land that was our home. It was our Home Depot. It was our Safeway. It was our church. So it's very important. This is where we got all of our subsistence food, wildlife habitat, fresh water, air.
So when you remove fire from the system, you can just look across this 80-year period without fire exclusion from the start to the left all the way to the bottom left, with fire allowed to burn, whether lightning or aboriginal fire. At certain elevations, you have a similar condition of more open conditions. You remove fire, you look at this slide here, year 80 without fire, we're set up across millions and millions of acres for this high severity event to happen. So we address that through partnerships. This is the quantitative risk assessment, where we've mapped out spatially and across the landscape the risks and the threats and where we need to invest those treatments. So this is 4.6 million acres. We have to treat 1 million of these acres. So we're looking at 30,000 acres a year of active ecological treatments, followed by prescribed fire. And we do that through a variety of approaches. We're thinking about northern spotted owls, resilient landscapes, communities, and then we have to think about climate in the future, but also what types of treatment, what land allocation, and what's our predictable workflow. How do we scale up a workforce at this magnitude across state, federal, tribal, and non-government organizations? It's a big lift. So we're thinking about a holistic approach. Once again, we're integrating the design of these treatments through these main elements of restoration and community protection. And then ultimately, this is some of our tribal team, works for our organization, protecting the old trees, and once we've gotten the work done, getting good fire back on the ground. Belinda.
So these are the elements, components of the community that we work with. There's tribal leadership, just like in your own community, there's different people. And one of the things we talked about this morning in policy was being prepared, really doing this work before the crisis hit. So I can't emphasize that enough. Reach out to those folks that you wouldn't normally reach out to. Have communication with the politicians, with the leaders, with the opinion leaders, traditional elders. And this is an example of that community and who we work with in order to get the results that we do.
So we will kind of wrap up here real quick. There's also sacred sites that are burning, really important places to the people. This is the bootleg fire. You can see the before and after of a almost 800,000 acre fire that burned in the Upper Klamath Basin. So it's not just loss of homes and communities, it's loss of really important sacred sites. We approach that through that ecological thin, and here's an area where we did conduct some restoration treatments. When fire came, it stayed on the ground. And this is a really telling photo. We've taken this to DC. This is one of our projects. An area we thinned and we put fire on the ground, survived. The areas with no thinning burned at about 85% mortality. No treatment at all. We had stand replacing fire. So we'll conclude with that slide and shift into the video, I guess.
Later on, when the season was over, our elder women would come back to the land and do this. It would burn.
Wildfire is a natural visitor to these ecosystems. With lightning strikes in the summer, tribal people, indigenous people carefully applied fire and burned across these landscapes for eons for cultural beneficial uses. With the removal of that really important disturbance agent of fire, more low intensity to moderate fire, we've taken that element out of the ecosystem and we're now seeing the effects on densification, stress-related mortality, insects and disease, heavy-handed industrial forestry. Now we're set up for high-severity catastrophic fires. So to abate that threat and to restore the ecosystem and create ecological resilience, we need to treat millions of acres across the West. And in order to do that, we really need to scale up a skilled workforce of ecological forestry professionals and ecological stewards on the ground. Fire is not going to go away. We're seeing mega fires that are not only devastating to communities like we saw in the Almeida fire, with 2,500 homes and structures lost. The importance of the funding, the importance of the program is both for human and for ecosystem, people in place. So it's very important that we continue these types of programs and we bolster that workforce and we restore ecosystems and we sustain communities.
Lomakatsi is a word that means life in balance, good life, a Hopi word. It began with a prayer. This is the work that goes along with walking out a prayer.
My experience working with Lomakatsi is that they really look out for the land. It's not a go in and clear-cut kind of deal. It's a delicate thing to do in a rough manner. I feel like Lomakatsi really has a good grasp on that.
Lomakatsi provides a lot of opportunities for Indigenous people, Latino communities.
Not only does Lomakatsi help people and get them opportunities, but it's also helping Mother Nature and being outside and taking care of her. So Lomakatsi is doing a really good job with that.
It's awesome to see women out here because it's definitely a male-driven industry. I'm ready to show everyone what we can do.
Honestly, but find yourself. Yeah, you find yourself out here.
Ecocultural restoration incorporates an ecological restoration focus. So we're trying to restore impacted and degraded ecosystems through an ecocultural lens.
Getting fire back on the land and being able to marry our Indigenous traditional ecological knowledge and the best practices of land management, of which fire was a tool and continues to be a tool. We're starting to see improvements where Lomakatsi Restoration Project has been working for the last 18 years. We see a patch of ground that didn't burn. So active treatments do work, and prescriptions for our Mother Earth are really important.
So it represents integrity and a reference to the past.
We're in the area doing restoration projects for wildlife, deer habitat, eco-friendly work, introducing Impac, which is Indigenous, traditional, ecological knowledge, bringing it back. Hopefully for years and years we've removed that. So we're bringing that workforce back through the youth and any tribal member that wants to be involved in this.
Is to restore ecosystems and the sustainability of communities, cultures, and economies. So we really layer in the triple bottom line of economic, ecological, and social. And then in the context of our tribal partnerships program, we're layering in cultural. So ecocultural is a restoration approach that leans on Indigenous, traditional, ecological knowledge, and it marries it with Western science. And bringing those two together gives us a really good restoration outcome.
Working with the kids, it's really great. I love being able to pass on the knowledge that I have down to others. It's also great to know that teaching the younger ones that they'll be able to grow up, know this information, and then hopefully they'll be able to pass it on to their younger generation.
What we're doing here today that's different is we're layering in first foods. We're planting ecocultural plants. So as we're restoring the creek, as we're restoring habitat for salmon, we're also restoring first foods and cultural plants. It's a very unique, innovative restoration approach that isn't done often. And then through that work, we're also training young adults, ages 18 to 26, and they're mentoring elementary school students, K through 6. So we have this intergenerational model, and we're building a restoration economy. And then we're building an ecocultural revitalization movement through this effort. So as we're protecting communities, we're restoring habitat, we're also creating economic opportunities, the restoration workforce in the future.
Out here on this burn unit, we have the Oregon Conservation Corps youth, Indigenous fire practices, something we call cold fire, low intensity, good for the land, good for the water, good for the soils, and good for the wildlife. All the training that they've gone through is very formal, very specialized, and recognized by the National Wildfire Coordinating Group and the qualification system, the 310-1. With all the training they've received from Lomakatsi, they have many open doors. They could go to the federal agencies, they could work for their tribe in the Natural Resource Department, they could go to CAL FIRE, they could go to ODF, they could stay within the private sector or even start their own forestry business. And some of this could follow them over into the municipalities and to the structure fire side of the industry. What we're ultimately doing across the vast landscape, utilizing fire as a tool and reducing the hazardous fuels, is we're creating fire-adapted communities. We're still in a massive rebuilding effort that has greatly affected lives. That speaks to how important this work is we have to do the work before the fire gets there so it can be managed.
Today we're training the crew in technical forestry skills. We're going to do post-treatment plots on ground that's been treated previously. The purpose of these plots is just to quantify the work that's been done on the ground. We brought out our laser rangefinders, our diameter tapes, our compasses, declinometers. These tools have been used for a long time in forestry. There's a lot of work out here as far as the technical side of things, gathering data, monitoring. There's a whole other side of forestry besides just running a chainsaw and being a boot pounder on the ground. These are really basic skills that get your foot in the door and can allow you to take your career to the next level.
Today we're out here doing a prescribed burn, what Native Americans have been doing for thousands of years. A few people are getting to use drip torches today. Having that drip torch in hand, you feel like a sense of power and that you're doing something meaningful. In my opinion, the best part about Lomakatsi is the diversity and the equity.
We have the Indigenous way of caring for others. We do pick each other up. We always try and help everyone out. Even if, they're not feeling well or they're down in the dumps, we're always there to help pick them up.
Poppy oak, the big pine, ponderosa pine. They tell a story for each one that's grown here. These pines have been here for hundreds of years and they've seen thousands of fires, thousands of people. These pines are a true testimony to time itself.
You want these trees to grow and thrive, and you want to have trees like this to continue to grow. Nature is very important to everything that has to do with life.
Klamath tribes were terminated back in 1954. They had one of the largest reservations, some of the biggest timber, and then that was taken from them. A lot of these youth and families being separated in boarding schools, being terminated, being taught that being an Indian wasn't a good thing, they're having to overcome that. So this is helping the youth being able to overcome suicide, domestic violence, and all those symptoms of multi-generational trauma that happened when the boarding school period came about and when the native people from here were separated from their homeland, from their heartland. So still today we're healing. Some of these tribes are just now growing up into sovereignty and growing up into the areas that they need to work and consult with the federal government and to work with our partner agencies so that we can work back on the land and be able to impart our Aboriginal knowledge back into this ecosystem.
After termination and after so much alcohol, there are families that don't have grandmas. There are families that don't have aunties. There are families that don't have uncles. There's families that don't have grandpas. I went to 7 schools in 1 year, and my sister and I, we quit talking to kids in our class because we knew we weren't going to be there very long. We were going to leave and don't make friends because that's too hard to say goodbye all the time. And this is things that the kids were going through and the parents were going through. They had nowhere to go.
People that have been here all their life, they realize they're either burning up there or there's a fire and it's good for the land. Because that's all we used to do back in the very beginning when we didn't have homes and that we'd burn. That's why we had such a rich forest, because we managed it, we took care of it and everything. We need more burning going on like we're doing up here now. Make the trees healthier and clean up the ground and kill off the diseases Because right now what we're putting up in smoke is killing diseases in those trees right now.
I welcome you to the Peak to Peak Reservation as an elder. I'm honored to have the opportunity to come today and speak before you. I hope it's to speak to my people also. The land I'm standing on today is really important to me. And to see the young people, giving back something here today, it's good. We had the greatest fire in West Coast history, and it was because of poor management. This is a conservation approach, and I understand this.
It's good to be back out here and doing this and being a part of it. I'm grateful to be out here. I'm proud to be like a crew support of the Native Youth Program here, and it's good to have them out here being in the labor force here in this digital world, because they need to be out here, and this is our people's ways and stuff, so it's good to have them out here.
Somewhere along the line, we lost our way. We lost that honor and that part of being a true stewards of our land and protecting what takes care of us. I'd stand in a river with you and fish. I could build a fire at my camp and feed you something off the land and be very proud of it because, something that me or my kids or my family harvested. But now, it's like it's a war everywhere. I'm so tired of being called a trespasser in my land. It's not right. My wife's been telling me I should do something like this. I'm speaking from my heart today. Because a lot of my old people are going away. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak from my heart, because sometimes that's all you got.
The people not only have this generational historical trauma, we also have this generational historical power and resilience and stubbornness to say no. This is the vision I see, and this is the vision I'm going to continually walk towards until I actualize it. And this is a testament right here.
It's really important that the youth are connected again to their land base, to their ancestral land base, as the first best stewards of the land, as Aboriginal people are, and continue to be the first best stewards of the land. Getting back to that reference system and the Aboriginal understanding of how we should live on this earth is something we're trying to educate all the time. So from cradle to the grave, food is our first medicine. Our elders will always tell you it's important that we eat what we gather, what we grow, in the environment that we're in. That's always going to keep you healthier and living in the natural cycles of the earth, sea, and heaven.
There's all types of vegetation that comes back up that feeds the animals, which are a food substance to our tribe. I've hunted this area for as long as I can remember, probably as far back as when I was 8 years old. Walked these mountains with my dad, my brother, hunted the whole area. Seeing the changes after the forest harvest, it made a big change here, and some new vegetation has come back in. In particular, one of the things that really came back strong after the harvest was elderberries, which brought in some black bears. So we now have black bears in the area, and it's because of the forest getting back to its natural state and the vegetation coming back in that were drowned out by the tight crowns canopy of the forest. And now it's open and everything's coming back to life. Very happy. A lot of work still has to be done in order to keep this maintained the way it is right now. Because if it's not maintained, we could lose it all to a fire very quickly.
You know, we all have responsibility to be a good citizen in the world, which is a given. Your personal life, your family life, your tribe, your people, the future generations, the land, the air, everything that basically is around you, you have a responsibility to take care of it. Everybody's included, everybody's treated fairly and equally, and that's within every tribe. That's probably one of the most important things. Lomakatsi Project, they do the intertribal workforce, which allows different tribal members from all these different tribes to work together. Just letting our youth know, like, staying positive and thinking positive and always doing the right thing is gonna get them pretty far.